Okay, here's warm-up number 44. If $2,000 is invested at 5% annual interest, how much is it worth after 10 years? So annual interest, I'm going to use my exponential growth formula, which is going to look like this. It's also known as the annual interest formula. Okay, so the A is going to be the initial amount, so that's going to be the 2,000. Y is the final amount, so that will tell me my final answer at the end of the problem. I don't know what that is yet. I do know that it is 5%, so it's tempting to put in a 5 for the R, but you want to write it as a decimal, so we want to write 5% like that. Okay, and the T is for time in years, so this is going to be a 10. Okay, now I can simplify that a little bit by hand. And now I can't do it by hand anymore because I don't know what 1.05 to the 10th is. Oh, a common mistake I see is people multiply these together first, then raise it to the 10th, but that's incorrect. PEMDAS says you have to do the exponent first before the multiplication. So I want to do 1.055 raised to the 10th power first. Got the calculator out here, and that's going to give me this number. Okay, and I could go on with that number, but this is approximately that. I've still got that long decimal in my calculator. So even though I didn't write down the whole thing, I still got it in my calculator here, and I'm multiplying by 2,000. And now since this is a money problem, I'm going to round to the nearest cent. So it's going to be $3,257.79. Okay. All right. Next up, we've got $3,000 invested at 4% interest. This time it's compounded quarterly, so I need a more complicated version of this formula. It's the one that has the ends in it. So it's going to look like this. You could actually use this formula on the last problem. It's just your ends would be 1 since you're compounding once per year. N is going to be the number of times you compound per year. So compounded quarterly, that means you're going to compound 4 times per year. Okay? So don't know the final amount. The initial amount is 3,000. My rate is going to be percent, so I'll write that as 0.04. And then number of compounds, that's 4. So there should also be a 4 up here. And then we're leaving it in there for 7 years. Okay, so there's our setup. And I'll start simplifying this. So I'm going to start with that fraction there. So 0.04 divided by 4, and then I'll add 1 to that. So 1.01 is the content of the parentheses. Exactly, so I don't even have to round this yet. 4 times 7 is 28, so I'll do that by hand. Okay, so now I'm going to do the exponent next, 1.01 raised to the 28th. And then I'll take that number and multiply it by 3,000. I didn't write that number down, but... And here's my final answer, and I'll round it to the nearest cent. Oops, 63 and 87 cents. Okay. All right. Next up, estimate how long it would take for $100 to triple if invested at 4% annual interest. So annual interest, going back to this. I don't need the R's in there because the N's, because they would just be 1s anyways. So it would simplify to that. Okay, so our initial amount is 100. Our final amount is going to be 300 because it's going to triple. Okay, and we know that the rate is 4%, so 0.04. So all we're trying to figure out here is the time. Okay, let me simplify this a little bit. Just like that. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, you could divide both sides by 100 if you wanted to. So actually, let's go ahead and do it. Okay, but now I don't have a good way to simplify this without logarithms, which we're getting to, but we haven't gotten there yet. Taking the square root is not going to do you any good. Dividing by 1.04 is not going to do you any good either. So what we're going to have to do is do a little kind of guess and check thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the 3 into a y. And I'll change this into it doesn't really matter if you do or not. But I'm just going to start playing with my calculator. Start raising 1.04 to different things. So I'm going to figure out, hey, what does x equal when y equals 3? That's kind of what I'm asking myself, okay? So in my calculator, 1.04, let's try raising to the second. Okay, so that's not enough, right? So let's try something more. Let's try raising it to the 10th. Okay, we're getting closer now, 1.48. That's further. I know I'm going in the right direction. Let's try to the 50th and see what happens. Okay, way too much, right? Now we're at 7, so it's going to be something between 10 and 50. Let's try maybe to the 20th. Okay, and we can keep going on, like getting close. It's going to be around 28. Okay, so I'm not going to go through. We can narrow it down like this. I'm going to show you another way that you can narrow on the 28 a little bit. So that's pretty good, right? That's just about 3. Okay, I made a mistake there, so I had to edit. But I was just saying that it's going to come out to about, x should be about 28. So another way you can do this is you can graph this equation on your calculator. Okay, so I'm going to go to the y equals button up here, and then I already typed it in, but 1.04 raised to the x, and I use this button for the x. Okay, once you get in there, you hit graph, and it should spit out a graph that looks something like this. Yours may be a little bit different based on the zoom. And what you can do then is use the trace button. So if I hit trace, my cursor is on the screen, and my cursor will stay stuck to that graph, and I can just scroll around left and right, and I'm looking for a y value of 3. So if I go to the right, I can see my y's are slowly going up, and I'm going to have to go off the screen a little bit, but that's okay. The calculator should scroll over. So I'm at 1.6 now. I'm going. If you wanted to make your jumps go quicker, you could zoom out. But I want to try to get pretty accurate y value here. Okay, and I'm just going to try to get the y to be about 3, which is right in here. And you can see it's pretty close to 28 if you look at the x's. Okay, so I'm going to say, and it's to the nearest year anyway, so it should take about 3 years. Okay, you can also use table. So if you go to right where the graph is, if you hit second and then graph for the table menu, you can scroll around with the x's, and there's different settings that you can have the x's jump however you want. But if you look closest to 28, right? That's another way to do it. Okay, that's it for this warm-up. See you next time.